Hey, let's make this 4-leaf clover together. Hey, it's Carolyn Edge with Edgecraft, and one of the most common things that I hear from people who are just starting to learn paper quilling is, I don't know how to start. I don't know where to begin. I bought my quilling kit months ago, but I'm afraid to touch it. I'm scared. I don't even know where to start. Or maybe you're thinking, I'm interested in trying paper quilling, but I don't even know if this is the right craft for me, and I just want to have a taste and give it a try before I get started. Well, my philosophy around that is start by starting. It sounds really basic, I know, but hear me out. So a lot of people will suggest that the best way to learn paper quilling is to first learn all the different basic shapes and practice those over and over and over again until you have a mastery of them. That can be a really cool practice if that's your jam, but it's not really my style. I didn't do that when I was learning paper quilling, and honestly, sounds a little boring to me, a little bit tedious. I think you're gonna have a lot more fun and really start to feel confident in this craft if you can have a quick win and walk away with a small project where you practice those basic shapes, but at the end, you actually have something to show for it. So I created this video series, Start by Starting. All of the videos in this series are designed to be small, tangible beginner projects to give you a quick win and practice those very basic shapes and techniques and walk away with an actual finished product. I'd love to hear how it goes for you. Please drop me a comment and let me know how your project is going. If you have any questions, I'd absolutely love to help you with those. Feel free to share this video with someone you think you would enjoy it, and let's get crafting. All right, here are all of the supplies that you'll need for this project, and if you don't have any of these specific supplies, don't worry, I've got you covered. Go ahead and check out my quilling supply substitute video, and I'll show you things that you can use around the house that you can use in place of any of these items. You'll need 10 paper quilling strips for the main color, the dark green in my example, and you'll need 4 quilling strips for the accent color, the light green in my example. You don't necessarily have to use an accent color. You could keep them all one color and your clover leaves would look a little something more like this. So if you go that route, you'll need 14 strips of that one color. Otherwise, you'll need 10 of the dark green and 4 of the bright green. You can absolutely use traditional quilling paper, which comes in huge packs like this. You'll just need to pick the colors that you want. When you pick off those individual strips of quilling paper, they look like this. These are 3mm strips, which is the most common size that you'll find. You can see that they're different than my strips, which are 1/4 inch, and there's really no right or wrong here. You're just gonna have a little bit of a different finished product, whether it'll look more narrow or more wide. The paper that I'm using is Astro Brights paper, which comes in a huge pack of a lot of fun colors for under $10, and I've simply just cut them lengthwise into 1/4 inch strips. You'll also need scissors for this project, a ruler, quilling tools, either a needle or slotted tool. This is the needle tool and the slotted. I'll be showing you how to use both in this example video. You'll also need a circle sizing board, which is going to help us get really nicely even sized shapes. You'll need glue, which I keep in a needle tip bottle because that helps me control the amount of glue that's coming out. And as a pro tip, I keep mine upside down in a shot glass with a damp paper towel, and that just helps keep the tip from drying out as I use it. And it also, keeping it upside down, helps keep the glue right at the bottom so that I don't have to shake it every single time that I need to get some glue out. I'm using Aleene's tacky glue, which is my favorite go-to, but you can use Elmer's or really any other kind of liquid glue. Just a quick note that if you are putting it in this needle tip bottle, I find that tacky glue is a little too thick, so you need to add a little bit of water and give it a good shake, and you'll be good to go. Lastly, this is optional, but if you would like to glue your Shamrock to a card or something, you'll need that on hand. Blank cards are a really great option for that, or you can leave it freestanding. All right, let's get started. So we're going to start with our main color and cut 8 strips to 9 inches each. What I like to do is to cut one and then I'll grab a few other strips and stack those up, make sure they're really lined up at the bottom. And then I will use that one as an example for how long I need to cut the others. That way I can cut several at once, but you can also cut them one by one. So again, we're cutting 8 strips to 9 inches each. You're going to leave 2 behind for our stem, and we don't need an accent color just yet, so we're going to set all those aside. All right, so let's get started by rolling our first strip of paper. And I like to first soften the fibers of the paper by simply placing the paper between my finger and the tool and running it through. You don't need to press very hard, and you'll find that it starts to soften the fibers and it starts to curl naturally, kind of like curling ribbon. This is just going to get the paper working on our side and curling in the direction that we need it to go. So we're going to start by simply placing the needle tool at the very end of our paper strip. And you can kind of start by backing into it to get the tool to the very edge of the strip and just start rolling it around the needle tool. So I'm holding the needle tool still and rolling the paper around it. I find that once I get going, and again, you want to make sure that you have a really nice even center to start with. Once you have that important part, I like to roll the rest using my hands. I like this method too because I can use my other hand to guide the paper to make sure that it's not spiraling out into a vortex. And then once we have this shape, we're going to release that into our circle sizer board on the number 15. Ideally, we want this coil to relax and fill the circle. However, as you can see, my coil is a little bit too tight, so I'm simply going to take it out and loosen it up a bit by opening it back up and re-rolling it looser. Now, I want to be clear that you didn't do anything wrong if your paper is not filling the circle. It's just kind of the nature of the process. You might find over time that you're able to really loosen your tension and get it right on the first try, but usually I have to re-roll my shapes. Okay, now putting it back in the circle sizer, it is looser, but I can still see that it needs to loosen a little bit. So I'm gonna loosen it up with my tweezers, give it a little bit of love, and now it's really filling out the circle. Next, I'll show you how to do this with the slotted tool. So with the slotted tool, you slip the paper in through the slot, and we wanna get it as close to the edge of the strip as we can. So we're just going to slowly slide it down and then start to roll the paper. The slotted tool is really great for beginners because it helps grip your paper and it's a lot easier to roll. This time I'm keeping my hand with the paper still and I'm rolling the tool, so it's the opposite from what we were doing with the needle tool. And once we've rolled the whole strip, we'll pop it off of the tool and we'll put it right back into our circle sizer on the 15, just like we did with the other strips. Now using our tweezers, let's take the coil out of the circle sizer board. Be sure to grab a couple layers of the coil so it doesn't unravel as you take it out. And we're gonna glue this seam down. All you need is just a little dot of glue, it doesn't take much, and we'll hold it down until it sets. All right, now it's time to shape our coils. The basics of what you're going to do here is pinch one side, which is going to make a teardrop shape. But I'm going to show you a couple of quick tips that are going to make your teardrop shapes look extra sharp. The first is to find where the seam is, where we glued down, and you want that to be the very tip of the teardrop where we're going to pinch. Otherwise, it'll be somewhere else on the side and it just won't blend in as well. The second tip that I have for you is that as you start to pinch, move the center coil back and forth with your other hand and eventually pull it back, pinching the tip. That gives us a really nice uniform teardrop. So here we go. You can see I'm pulling back the center circle as I pinch right where the seam is. And there we go. Here's our teardrop shape, which is going to be the basis of each of the clover leaves. I'll show you again. So again, we're finding the seam and that's going to be where we pinch. And moving the center coil back and forth a little bit, which creates these nice even lines. And once we have that, we pinch down. If you're starting to feel more confident, I'll show you how to glue and pinch all in one go. So as we pull it out of the circle sizing board, we'll add our glue. And as you press it down, we're just gonna go ahead and pull back and pinch. So there it all is in just a little bit of faster motion. You'll want to repeat this to make 8 teardrop shapes with the ones that you cut to 9 inches each. I'm going to show you again with the slotted tool what that looks like. You can do them one at a time, or as you can see, since I have several slots that are 15 on my circle sizer, I'm rolling a few and then I'll shape a few at the same time. So here it is again with the needle tool. And once again, to shape them, we're going to glue the seam down. And to do it all in one go, we'll simply press that seam down, begin to pinch, pull back the center coil, and pinch into our teardrop shape. All right, so at this point you should have 8 teardrop shapes, and we're just gonna check and see that they all look a little bit uniform. Like for example, as I look at these, that one looks pretty skinny and that one looks a little bit fatter. So we're just gonna play with the shapes a little bit and pinch this one a little bit more so that it's skinnier. You can also pinch them the other way like this if you want to make them a little bit fatter. Just kind of play around until all of the shapes are looking a little bit more uniform. For our next step, I'd like to point out the directions that the lines are going at the point of this teardrop. And we're going to glue 2 pieces together to make basically a heart shape. And this is a small detail, but when you put them together like this, I think they look a little funky. I think they just look a little bit better when the lines are facing in towards each other. It's not a big deal, but I'm a really big fan of details that can make your quilling work look extra sharp. So to glue these together, we're just gonna add a little bit of glue on one side of them and then pinch them down together. You'll probably need to hold it for a few seconds, like mine didn't immediately stick. Just hold it until the glue sets. So now we have this lovely little heart shape, and if you want to make other designs using hearts, now you know how to do that. And as you can see, the small detail that I was just mentioning, the lines are going in towards the middle. Now we're going to repeat this, gluing 2 teardrop shapes together at a time so that we create 4 clover leaves. All right, now that we're done with all 4 sets, when you put them together, you can see that our clover is starting to take shape. So now we're going to glue on the accent color. You're going to start by applying just a little bit of glue on the outside of one of your heart shapes, and then line up your accent color strips to go along the outside of it. That first little bit you really want to make sure is nice and set before we keep going so it doesn't slide around. And then you're just going to keep adding glue as we go around the heart shape. I'm using my fingernail here to make sure it really gets into the middle of the heart, and then I'm going to come back with my needle tool to really press in and make sure that it's nice and flush all around the heart shape. Continuing all the way around the heart shape, gluing just a little bit at a time and pressing the paper down as I go. I'm going around my heart shapes 3 times so that it creates a nice solid outline. So just keep going all the way around until you've gone 3 times. Once you get to the end, you'll find that you have a little bit of excess on your paper strip, so you'll just simply cut that off. And I'm adding a little bit more glue here just to make sure it's really nice and glued down. So now we have one of our clover leaves looking good. Next, we're going to just repeat that with all 4 of our heart shapes, adding the accent color 3 times around each of the shapes. All right, now our shamrock is really coming together as we put the pieces together. We're gonna do sort of like we did with the individual teardrops, just kind of check out your pieces and make sure they're nice and even. You can kind of pinch them around if any need to be a little bit more narrow or wider. Just kind of play around and make sure they're all fitting together nicely and looking nice and even. Now let's make our stem shape. You'll need a strip that's about 20 inches long. For mine, they came from an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, so they really got cut down to about 10 inches long each, so I need to glue 2 together. You might be working with really long paper quilling strips. Sometimes those pre-cut strips come 22 inches long, so you might be good to go. But either way, you need one that's about 20 inches long. And then just like before, we're simply rolling the whole thing, and because it's so long, I'm definitely going to use just my fingers for this one. And this time we're placing it into the number 20 on my circle sizer, just because this is going to be a much looser one. Once I bring it out and I glue down the flap just like we did before, and I'm going to pinch this one into a pretty long teardrop shape. And then as I pinch, I'm going to just press the other side here to create the bottom of the stem. And I think this is kind of fun if it goes at a bit of an angle. So that's kind of what I'm creating here. Rather than pinching it flat, I'm pinching it at an angle so we get this kind of unique shape. All right, so now we have all of our shapes and we simply need to put them together. You're simply just going to start by adding a little bit of glue on the outside of your heart shapes and pressing them together one after another. And then I'm using my tweezers to really pinch those two together to make sure they're stuck together nicely. Those look good, and now I'm adding a little bit more glue to the outside of this one to add this heart. If you ever wanted to make a 3-leaf clover, here you go, here it is. And now adding our last one. All right, it doesn't quite fit, but that's okay because we need a little bit of open space for our stem. So just adding a little bit more glue there, and then we're just gonna slip the stem right in the middle there. I'm using my tweezers again to kind of pinch around and make sure everything's good. And there you have it. We are ready for St. Paddy's Day with our 4-leaf clover Lucky Charm. You have options to leave it freestanding like this, or if you'd like to glue it to a card, here's what it looks like. Thanks so much for making this with me today. I'd love to hear how it goes for you if you'd like to drop a comment or tag me on social media if you make this. All those links are listed below. And be sure to like, subscribe, and share if you enjoyed this, and be sure to check back soon for more tutorial videos coming your way.